Hey guys, it's Andre, and I've been receiving the question of what exactly is this energy work that you're doing? So I wanted to create a video that explains exactly what's going on and why someone like me, a successful Silicon Valley software engineer, would transition into a career of serving people with something as alternative or woo as energy work. So there's a couple reasons why, and there's a lot going on. It's actually very technical and very complex. The TLDR, the simple answer to what's going on here, is the goal of the work is mainly to release and reduce the amount of stress and tension that is built up in the body, in the human system. And there's a few different main subsystems of the body that we look at for that, but overall the chronic or the over time the long-term stress and tension that we hold affects the nervous system, it affects our body physically, and it affects the way we perceive reality and the way we perceive the world, and it affects our level of consciousness. There are measurable levels of consciousness. Most people might just think, oh well, I'm conscious, I'm human, and that's true, and there are levels to it. So that's the main goal, is to basically unbind and unwind the stress that gets held by the body. And this is probably where the first kind of point of questioning might start. So stress is held by the body, and we know this to be true. Um, People that are more diehard on the Western medicine side of things might think that stress is simply a temporary state based on how your mind is perceiving whatever challenges you're in any given moment throughout your work day. You're like, oh, I was so stressed today, right? The reality is that stress and tension is held by the body over long periods of time, even decades. There's a lot of research. There's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score. Which talks about how the body holds on to these different patterns and just types of tension, the way it can get stored in the body and held there. So there's nothing really to believe as far as all the energy work goes. Um, you don't need to believe in anything for it to work. This is the fundamentals that it's based on. So this releasing and unbinding the bound stress and tension in the body is the whole core of what we're doing here. And in doing so, we elevate a person's level of consciousness, which changes the way that they view and interact with reality. The way this happens is actually pretty technical. It's very specific. It's very logical. If we see this, then we do that. If we experience this, then we're going to operate on this. Operate's not the best word, but nothing is specifically being treated. We're not treating the pain. We're not treating the stress. We're not treating any specific condition at all. What the work does is it creates the space for the person receiving the work's body, for their system, to let go and relax and heal itself. Because at the end of the day, all healing is self-healing. So think about, if you put a band-aid on a wound, the band-aid doesn't actually heal it, doesn't heal the wound. The neosporin, right, the antibacterial cream you might put on that wound doesn't heal the wound. The body itself is going to heal that. The Band-Aid and the neosporin create the environment for optimal healing to occur, because there's no infection, there's no more physical rupture or damage happening. It allows the body to do its thing. If you think about, if a hand gets amputated or cut off, and a hand surgeon reconnects it, all the surgeon does essentially is line it up and stitch it together. The nerves, for example, they don't sew the nerves back together. The nerves will do their thing and find their way and reconnect all on their own. So even in the Western medicine approach, all that is doing is very similar. It's not all that's doing, but what that's doing is the same thing. We're creating the environment, the ideal, best environment we can for the body to do the healing, so you can come out better than where you started. Same thing with the energy modality, with using the energy work as a tool, we're just creating a better environment in the moment during the work so that your body can do what it needs to do to better heal itself. Same thing. The way that happens, this is where it gets interesting. And you still don't have to believe in it, but it happens at the quantum level. So we know that the body has these electromagnetic fields. The heart, the heart's field can be measured with electronic devices several feet, I think up to 3 or 4 feet off of the body. It's that strong of a field that we can electromagnetically sense it with electronic tools. The brain has one that's also very powerful, right? We have EKGs, EEGs, and the electronic devices that we have are able to pick up those fields. Think about, just as an example, the spectrum of light. There's only so much that the human eye can see, but there's ultraviolet and there's infrared. And so there's all this other light that exists besides just what we can see. And so think about the same thing with these fields of the human body. There's more than what our current electronic hardware can detect and measure and pick up. So yeah, we can measure the heart, we can measure the brain, but there are other ones that are more subtle that electronic hardware currently cannot measure. And so this is where it gets interesting. Just because electronic hardware can't measure it doesn't mean human hardware can't measure it. And this is the training that energy practitioners learn, is you learn how to sense the subtle levels of the energetic fields of the human body so that we can interact with them in such a way to create the environment for the body to do the self-healing. And there's a lot of variables, there's a lot of different modulations, there's a lot of different ways that people's bodies show up differently, if that makes sense, and the way that their fields are. But it all comes down to physics. There's only so many, I mean, in physics, there's a lot of different ways that energy manifests and a lot of different chemicals and compounds and atoms and stuff like that. There are so many different things. And all of that can be discovered and shared and is information we can talk about. And so that's the type of things that the energy practitioners kind of talk about. Is there's space, there's particles, there's waves, there's entanglement, there's all these fields, there's all these things. And that's the level that we're operating with. And you can learn how to sense with your own human hardware this level of subtlety. The more stress and tension your body has, it might be more challenging to sense the subtleties. And I can say that from experience. So it takes a journey, it takes a decision to recognize the amount of stress and tension that you have. And usually people don't. And this is that kind of tricky place where people think that they're okay just as they are. And everyone is okay. Some people recognize when they hit some kind of rock bottom that they're not okay. And then they get help. That's how my journey started. And the traditional and conventional tools that we have to this day, things like therapy, things like meditation, things like Western medicine, can only do so much. And so there's this other level of the amount of stress and tension that your body holds and how that influences your psyche and your mind and your thoughts and your behavior and the way you show up in the world and your consciousness. And that whole aspect, that whole way of that whole world of the human body is not talked about on the Western side of things, really. And that is the fascinating stuff, because if we can work on that, we can work on these problems that people experience at a much deeper root level. And coming from my software background, that's always the best way to fix a problem. If you put a band-aid on it, if you do a quick fix, likely it's going to show up again later, and it can cost the company a lot of money to fix down the line. If you do a root cause solution, that is the best place to solve the problem. And so if you have this chronic stress and you end up, for example, talking with someone about it on a regular basis, then you're kind of only just letting off a little bit of steam every time you have that conversation. But if you can get to the deeper layers and work on why that pattern is even there in the first place, and you can dissolve and release the bound tension and stress and energy that's even causing that pattern to exist, then we're working at a much deeper level as to what's really going on. And this is all, it is very subtle. And this is probably why it's been out of the kind of modern Western medicine viewpoint for so long. Although, cultures have been talking about energy and things for thousands and thousands of years. It might not be as reproducible because the practitioner is a key piece of the equation. Going back to quantum physics, we know that the observer affects the observed. And so if the person who is doing the energy work is not as practiced or as skilled or has mastered their craft as much as someone else, they're not going to have the same effect on that other person. And so it can be harder to deterministically measure and test and have hypotheses and all this stuff. But some people are doing it, and there is research behind this type of work. Donnie Epstein is someone who's done a lot of that research, and it really is quite fascinating. So the way it all kind of comes together is, as a practitioner, you work at the quantum level. We are working with interacting with the quantum energy field of a person's system. And we do so by being able to sense with the hardware that we have as human beings what their system is calibrated to. And we can see things in the physical body, we can sense and feel things in the energetic body. And that is how the work is done. And there are different patterns that we look for. There are things that are, I don't want to say consistent, but just patterns that we see in multiple people. And those have been researched and studied, and a lot of that has been done in the chiropractic world. And that is kind of what tells us kind of where to work, what to do, how we're going to approach a session, for example. And it really is something to experience. Everyone's experience is different. And the more open your body is, the more somatic interoception that you have, the more you're able to sense what's going on inside your body. You're going to have a more coherent, a more effective session. I wouldn't say effective. It's effective no matter where you are. But you will be able to sense and feel more of things that are going on. If you are carrying more stress, more tension, like I was when I started a lot of this, you might not feel as much in your first couple sessions, your first few sessions, but you will still have an effect and have an effective session because progress is being made. Some of the things that I've heard from my volunteers and my clients, even just as I've been learning, is, pain is going away even after one session. Pain that someone had in their SI joint went away after basically one session. Knee pain has been reduced significantly, like noticeably. Hasn't come back. Having more energy and less coffee, needing less coffee to get through the day. That's huge. Feeling more okay to just go out in the world and do things, having more overall confidence, having more mental clarity. Someone who had experienced, significant trauma and abuse said that she felt safer in her body after just one session. These are things that are life-changing for people. It's pretty incredible and it's really an honor to deliver this kind of service to people who are open to it. And again, it doesn't take, you don't have to believe in anything. It's just, yeah, I want to get better. Can you help me? And we know we can create the environment for the body to help itself. I'm not even doing much. But there's a lot of technicality to the not doing of the thing. And that's where the training comes in. And it's pretty amazing. And it is very technical. And it does take mastery. And even my mentor, who's been doing this for over 3 decades, says that he continues to improve himself and his process and the way he delivers the work because of how technical it really is and how many different variables there are. So if there are any questions that you still have or questions you want me to answer, anything you're curious about, feel free to shoot me a message somehow or maybe leave a comment around this video somewhere and let me know what's on your mind and where you're coming from and what you're thinking. It really is amazing that this work is possible. And it's going to become more and more of a thing in the coming years and coming decades because it really is a very life-changing, very powerful tool to use. A lot of people ask, is this Reiki? And the answer is no, it's not Reiki. Reiki is more about taking kind of universal energy and sending it, into somebody. And this work is more, like I said, about the quantum fields of the human body itself that we interact with. So that is probably the main difference with Reiki, and it's focusing on the bound energy in the body, right? Reiki is all about kind of the universal energy. So very different approaches to working with the energy of the universe and of the human body. So anyway, I'll cut this video here. I hope that answered some questions you may have. Any other questions, feel free to send them my way, and I'm happy to answer them. Again, my name is Andre. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I'll see you later.